and I took Lake City by quote-unquote $1 billion in the play-in game.
On the North Idaho Prepcast, we're all about that North Idaho life.
Man, you talk about Wallace and what they've been able to do this year. Quietly just being, the steady stalwart up north in District 1. They've been dominant.
From Bonners Ferry all the way down to Grangeville, we tackle the biggest stories in North Idaho sports.
This Genesee team is for real. We know we saw it last year. They're I think in the driver's seat to repeat.
It's the North Idaho Prepcast with Ryan Scaggs. That's right. Hey, welcome in. It's the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account just after 10 a.m. Pacific time. You're on Thursday, October 24th. Of course, you can watch this anytime on replay at those three destinations, Facebook, YouTube, and X. You can listen to this podcast at IdahoSports.com, along with wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. My name is Brandon Baney. We are joined by Ryan Scaggs, our North Idaho resident and expert. What's up, Scaggs? How you doing this week?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we had fun last week with the crossover show with Sean and Joel. That was a ton of fun, and being able to get a perspective from an area of the state that necessarily we don't get to flap our gums about too much on this show. So it was kind of nice to kind of have our crossover arguments, and we went in the weeds, but it was good. I thought it was a great show. We went long, but I think it was long because we had to cover two different areas in a simultaneous show. So it was like each one gets to get their spotlight. So, but yeah, we're doing good, and I'm excited this weekend. And the last week of football, you got state soccer starting today. There's a bunch of tournaments up north. There's a lot going on. It's gonna be pretty neat.
Yep. Okay, I have two questions for you following last week's crossover episode where you were joined by our East Idaho Prepcast team, Joel Richardson and Sean Kane. Okay, first of all, are all of you still on speaking terms? Did you guys?
Oh, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually kept our text thread active, so we're still chatting back and forth. We were going through some of the results on Friday as football scores were rolling in, and that was fun. It was pretty cool. I mean, there were some stunners statewide. We'll talk more about those, but that was pretty neat to have those conversations because it opened some eyes as far as prognostications go. Looking forward into the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, the second question I was going to ask is, did you guys settle the decades-long, centuries-long debate? Which area is more slighted and disrespected, North Idaho or East Idaho?
Oh, it's us by miles. I mean, we don't get to host a state, major state tournaments necessarily any. Hopefully we get wrestling soon. I mean, that was in the works. I saw that coming up possibly early as 2027 or 28. So but yeah, I still think the North gets slighted more. I think it's just geographically we're so far removed. You got like that natural land barrier right in the middle of the state where you have one high school in Riggins, and that's it.
Now, to be fair, we do have some state events coming up here that are going to be hosted in the North. State soccer in Sandpoint and at the real life fields in Post Falls and at Coeur d'Alene. State volleyball is going to be at Lake City High School and the University of Idaho in Moscow getting involved in the hosting game, cool. Which is awesome.
Yeah. I'll give the state the kudos when they're due. Picking up the Mountain America Center and the University of Idaho for state volleyball is freaking rad. That's so awesome and great for those kids. And it gives you a marquee venue, respectively in the North and in the Southeast. I mean, that's an awesome deal.
I've never seen such diversity in the state volleyball sites where 6A and 5A is going to be at the Mountain America Center in Idaho Falls, that brand new arena that was built 2 years ago. 4A is going to be at Lake City High School in Coeur d'Alene. 3A is going to be in Moscow, U of I. The 2A tournament is going to be in Jerome. Our good friend Scott Burton is actually hosting a state volleyball tournament at Jerome. And then Canyon Ridge in Twin Falls is hosting the 1A. So you've got two in the Magic Valley, two in East Idaho, two up north, nothing in the Treasure Valley. I think that's how we all like it.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, those District 3 guys I'm just kidding. But, yeah, no, I think that with volleyball this year, they knocked it out of the park with the sites. Lake City is a great facility. It's like 7 blocks from my house. It's great. But, when they did the gym renovations and everything at Coeur d'Alene and Lake City, got some expansion stuff too. I mean, North Idaho gym wise is underrated as far as some of the facilities that we've got up here between there. And then you throw in Lakeland in the mix. You've got the arena at Post Falls is awesome. I think Les Rogers Court up at Sandpoint got redone recently too. So, and you can look at Bonners Ferry's got a really nice gym too. They got a great facility as well. So, I mean, there's a bevy of nice locations, and then we're getting more hotel space too. And I think that just lends to having more state events probably work its way into our region.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to some of those District 2 places I've been. Lapway, just a phenomenal basketball facility.
Awesome gym. Yeah,
for sure.
Lewiston, the new gym at Lewiston High School is incredible, and we're going to see that football field Friday night. And I'm stoked. I mean, I saw them during the construction process before they got the turf down and everything. This facility, I tell you what, is gorgeous. Oh, it's nice.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that for sure. Before we get there, let's break down state soccer. The state soccer tournaments are upon us. And real quick, you guys really talked state golf last week, but I just personally wanted to say I'm so proud of the Coeur d'Alene High girls. When you and I last were on the show and I was talking about previewing state golf, I said, really, there's no chance for a team from North Idaho to go down and compete just because of numbers, and the Treasure Valley is always so strong, and a top 3 finish definitely in the works for some of our teams. Coeur d'Alene only finished on the girls' side 13 strokes behind Rocky Mountain for the championship. So hey,
plus
I was
yeah, I mean,
yes,
in a playoff, that was awesome. Yeah, that Coeur d'Alene team played their tails off.
So I just wanted to say I was wrong. Way to go, Coeur d'Alene ladies. Keep up the good work on the links. So
yeah,
there we go.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's go to state soccer tournaments. I figure we'll just start 6A, work our way down to the 4A competition. Let's start on the boys' side, where Lake City wins the district, that best of 3 series over Coeur d'Alene. Essentially, it goes to the Timberwolves. Hotly contested couple of matches. Both of these teams, I thought, probably deserved a crack at getting to state. Lake City is the team that gets the nod. They're the number 3 seed, Ryan. They will open against Owyhee, the 6th seed. Doubly painful for Coeur d'Alene is they're hosting. So Lake City is going to play on Coeur d'Alene's field to kick off the tournament Thursday morning, 9 a.m. It probably is, getting close to wrapping up.
Coming out of halftime right now, yeah.
Yeah. So...
No, that I mean, that's a good deal for that group. And you look at Coeur d'Alene too. Like we talk about, both those teams could have had a crack at being in the state tournament. I mean, I know that you get the opt down from Post Fall, so that leaves you with 2 teams in conference. It's a hard time justifying a 2 bid out of 2 teams. But in this situation, I think it definitely exists just with the competitive balance too within the IEL with the 6A and the 5A teams. It was pretty competitive. I mean, you look at Lewiston had a great year. Sandpoint had a great year. You look at Moscow's in the mix, year in and year out. The balance within that conference is there. Lake City, I look at, they're a dark horse. I didn't pick them in my pick 6 for soccer this week, but I'll let them have their bulletin board material so they can go ahead and give me the credit for not crediting them enough if they go on to make a run at state. But I think that they've got a puncher's chance. I mean, with the 3 seed, that's not a bad deal for them. And, playing some at home, they get to sleep in their own bed at night. I mean, that's a nice deal for that group. And that Lake City team is extremely competitive.
Here's what I've learned quickly in my time of covering high school soccer and observing high school soccer in the state of Idaho for about 4 years now. At any given state tournament, probably like 6 of the 8 teams could win the championship. There's always like 2 to 3 teams that are like really excellent and dominant. And there's always a couple of teams that are kind of just happy to be there and are typically a little overmatched. And then there's some teams in the middle that, because games that end in draws go to penalty kicks, it all comes down to just a series of one-on-one opportunities. And there's a lot of variance, a lot of wildness. And so because of that, really like 5 or 6 teams at every one of these state tournaments, if they held up the trophy at the end for first place, I'd go, it doesn't surprise me too much. So
I mean, we talked about that last year. It was like I think the top 6 seeds last year, we thought all had a legitimate shot at winning the state championship. And, realistically, you look at that. I mean, Owaihi's sitting in a 6 seed. Owaihi's a really good team.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that's like, that's a tough draw for Lake City, but Lake City's a really good team. And then you throw in Boise. You've got, Rocky Mountain's been pretty dominant this year too. Is Rocky due for a loss? I mean, we've seen number one teams walk in and lose, in their opening round game. We've seen it happen. So anything can happen in this tournament. Lake City, Owaihi is, I don't know. I haven't checked the scores yet this morning to see what's going on over there. I could probably jump on Twitter and give a live update. But yeah, it's an interesting matchup. And the T-Wolves, I mean, they're a great group. And the North, I think, has a chance in a couple of classifications for sure. I really look at like 6A girls, 5A girls. I think Lewiston's got a great shot, at 5A also. And we'll talk about the Bengals. But this tournament, I think, stacks as far as draw goes. You get through that first game, I think you got a favorable draw in that semifinal match.
Yeah. I'll try to get some updates here as we're going in real time, because as we talk and swing it over to the 6A girls tournament, which is being held in Sandpoint at War Memorial Field. Great turf there. Great facility.
An awesome facility too.
Yeah. Ironically enough, so we've got on the boys' side, number 3 Lake City versus number 6 Owaihi going on right now. Well, it's also Owaihi and Lake City battling on the girls' side right now, but the seeds are flipped. Owaihi is the 3 seed. Lake City is the 6. I don't know. I think Lake City's probably underseeded a little bit. The top 5 seeds in this tournament all went to Boise Valley teams, and then the other teams, Lake City 6, Highland 7, Madison 8. I don't know. I feel like Lake City is definitely a top 4 team. Very tough opening round matchup with Owaihi, the defending champs. But it looks like in the 58th minute, this is from Mark Nelke, our good friend at the Coeur d'Alene Press. He is in Sandpoint observing Owaihi's up 2-0 on Lake City now in the second half. So on the girls' side.
Okay.
Tough.
No, I was just went and looked. The boys, Owaihi's leading 2-0 in that one too. So that's from Jason Elliott. The boy, he's at the boys tournament. So Owaihi leads Lake City 2-0. So I haven't got an updated score from him yet. But yeah, that's I mean, we talk about draws, but the Max Preps rankings favor the District 3 schools pretty heavily. And they don't play out of conference a ton. I know that a few of the teams played a team from Utah. There was a few games they crossed over with like the high country teams, but by and large, I mean, most of their games came within league. And I mean, when you got the bevy, 13 schools in that conference playing 6A soccer, or I believe 12 playing 6A soccer, like, do you need to really go anywhere else? If you've got everybody in your backyard, you pick up a couple non-leagues and then there you go. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. 2 teams that don't really know each other, and you get to the rest of the tournament too. You start seeing how are those East Idaho teams going to do against the Boise schools too. And our picks are obviously up on the Facebook and Instagram page for Idaho Sports, so you can see how we prognosticated this week. Instead of releasing our football picks today, we released our soccer picks. But I noticed you did that, so. But yeah, it'll be interesting, and soccer's, like you said, you nailed it when you said, you look at the top 5-6 teams, any one of those, any game, give them a chance, and there's going to be an upset. There will, and there always is.
And sometimes it's even a 7 or an 8 seed that gets all the way to the championship, and so yeah, I think just in general,
I think we can see that at 5A more than 6A, but yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's do it. Let's go to 5A. 5A boys. This tournament is being held in East Idaho, Bonneville High School over in Idaho Falls. We have Moscow and Sandpoint both advancing. I believe Moscow beat Nampa in a play-in match this past Saturday to earn their slot. We always felt pretty good about 2 teams getting here to state. It turns out to be Sandpoint and Moscow. Moscow is up first today. They're the number 8 seed, which I think they probably earned only because they played such a rigorous schedule, but they're going to play the defending champs from Wood River right out of the gates in that 8-1 matchup at 1:00 this afternoon. And then Sandpoint's right after in that 5-4 against Blackfoot. What do you make of this bracket?
I think Wood River, I mean, that's a brutal matchup to draw the first one from Moscow. That Wood River team is really, really good. I mean, we saw them, I believe they beat Boise earlier in the year. They played a 6A team and a good 6A school. That's just a tough draw. But you look at Sandpoint. I mean, Sandpoint knocked off, the 6A schools this year. And I mean, that Sandpoint team, we talk about it again. I mean, just you start hot. If you can get on a roll, like, things can happen. And it would not surprise me one bit if that Sandpoint team ends up on the podium. I don't know if they're going to be necessarily on top, but if they're going to end up getting a top 4 finish, that would not shock me one bit.
Yeah, it is a tough draw. Blackfoot right away. That's a coin toss matchup, and then being on the same side as Wood River also.
Blackfoot's a sneaky team. I mean, we saw them get hot in the district tournament, and so that's the team that I talked to Sean about that one. He has them picked. I believe he picked them to win 5A. So
he did.
He's high on the Broncos, and they're a solid team.
Yep. Speaking of Wood River, as we transition to the girls tournament, which is also held in East Idaho, Hillcrest High School in Ammon, which is basically Idaho Falls. Wood River is going to feature prominently in a matchup against the North Idaho team, but this time it's against Lewiston. The Bengals come in as the number 2 seed overall. Scaggs, they didn't even win the district tournament. Sandpoint won the district tournament. Sandpoint is the 4 seed. They'll play Hillcrest today at 3:00 in the 4 versus 5 matchup. Lewiston beats a very good Valley View team in that play-in match to earn their spot at state. And because they had such a great regular season, they get the number 2 seed, and they get number 7 Wood River coming up here in just a little bit.
I think those two teams helped each other. If you really want to talk about it, I mean, Sandpoint getting the win over Lewiston lifted their rankings to get to that 4 line and the district championship. But you look at Lewiston, I mean, if they had won districts, they could have realistically had an outside chance of the 1 seed. And, this Bengal team is really good. I think Sandpoint just caught them at the right time. And, you still got the tough win in the play-in game. That doesn't hurt you necessarily because you're playing soccer. You're not taking, the couple extra days off. You're still out there. You're still loose and being able to work on things. I don't look at the play-in games necessarily as an indicator that, you're a crummy team or anything like that. That just tells you about the balance within your conference. I like Lewiston. I picked Lewiston to win it. I think that there's some athleticism out there that's underrated. They don't get talked about a ton. They're extremely fast. They play well. They're stingy on the defensive side. That's a team that, I'm going to go the dark horse with the Bengals to be my outside chance to win. But Sandpoint could shock people. So
not really a dark horse picking the number 2 seed overall, but
they don't get talked about a ton. I mean, you look at the season that they've had, they've kind of quietly just been there every week, like kind of on top. We haven't even talked about them very much on this show. Like, they've had a great season. And we're like, kind of skip over it. We talk about the battles that Sandpoint has, and Moscow comes in and, plays a tough game, and Lewiston's just quietly chipping away at everybody else.
That's true. We did underrate Lewiston quite a bit this year. Here's my hot take. This time of year, I'm always coming with the hot takes and the bold predictions. And again, if I'm wrong, I'll come back and wear it next week. Okay. I think there's a higher likelihood that Sandpoint is playing for the championship than Lewiston is.
Ooh.
And I'll tell you why. Because I think Pocatello, that number 3 seed, is really, really good. In fact, I picked Pocatello to win the whole thing in our girls soccer picks. That is such a tough semifinal matchup for Lewiston, I believe. And I look at where Sandpoint's at, and yes, Hillcrest is a tough opening round matchup. And if they advance, I got to be honest, Middleton is the number 1 seed. I'm not impressed with Middleton's total body of work. Yeah. So I think Sandpoint, we've seen them do this before. I would love to see an all North Idaho final, Lewiston, Sandpoint. But I think if we're talking about a team that's playing for the championship, I think it's more likely we're going to be talking about Sandpoint rather than Lewiston.
Okay. I'll give you that one.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No fact check. Okay. I'm just going to, boy, you've really emboldened me here. I'm just going to get crazier.
Sandpoint got him in the last head-to-head. So, if you look at who's hot down the stretch, Sandpoint's got the track record. You look at what they did last year. That's a good group. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's talk 4A state soccer tournaments. These are being held in conjunction at the real life fields over in Post Falls. Kind of the quote-unquote home digs for Coeur d'Alene Charter. That's where they play all their home matches during the season. And hey, wouldn't you know it, Coeur d'Alene Charter got into both brackets. Let's start with the boys' side, where one game has already gone final, Ryan. Bonners Ferry got that number 6 seed overall. They had to play Teton, who stunned the world. They took out Sugar Salem in the district championship last week. Teton defeated Bonners Ferry 1-0. It just went final about 15 minutes ago. So that's a heartbreaking loss for Bonners Ferry in that opening round. They'll try and rebound tomorrow in a consolation bracket game. Coeur d'Alene Charter up next. They're playing American Falls, the number 7 seed, and this is a dangerous game for the Panthers, I believe. I think American Falls is a better team than the number 7 seed overall.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I picked Teton in this bracket. I like how they're playing as of late down the stretch. They've been playing really tough. I mean, knocking off Sugar would have been my favorite if Sugar was in, but they're not. Teton stunned them in the district tournament. They didn't get in. There's no at-large coming on that side of the bracket. So, Teton earned their way in, and they got the tough victory over Bonners Ferry. Bonners has been playing really scrappy of late too. I mean, you look at Coeur d'Alene Charter and how they've been. Coeur d'Alene Charter can't be sleepwalking in this one. They've got to be on their toes, and they're going to get guns a-blazing from everybody else. And there's a team that's in there too. Wendell, got the number 1 seed. That Wendell team is really good as well. And if you look at our picks, I mean, you can kind of tell why, because a lot of guys are picking them. But that Wendell team's really dangerous. And, it'll be interesting to see how things shake out, Saturday afternoon, how the dust kind of settles in this one. But I think that we're going to see this might be one of the more balanced brackets as far as competitive balance goes. There can be a lot more close matches than this one.
Yeah, and then if we look at the girls' side, only one team from North Idaho at the 4A tournament, Coeur d'Alene Charter. They beat Bonners Ferry in the district championship, and then this year, Bonners Ferry had to go play a play-in match against American Falls, who is, really good. I mean, they shouldn't have been in a play-in game. So Bonners Ferry fell there. Coeur d'Alene Charter is the number 7 seed. They are going to play number 2 Fruitland today at 11 o'clock in Post Falls. I got to be honest, this is a bad spot for Coeur d'Alene Charter here as well. Fruitland is the team that I picked to win it all. They are a high-powered scoring machine.
Yep. That's a tough draw for Coeur d'Alene Charter to get in a first-round matchup. And then you look at, who also is in that bracket. Sugar Salem's really, really, really good too. This bracket's very top-heavy as far as, you look at scoring offense for soccer. This 4A girls could be, you could see games, maybe a couple of them get close to double digits. I mean, that's crazy talking at high school, state soccer, but that's the real reality of, some of the talent that's out there in this bracket.
Yeah. So good luck to all of our North Idaho teams here representing at state. I think if we are going to see a champion, it's probably most likely going to come from the 5A ranks, if I had to really be confident. And then 6A, and then I think 4A has the toughest uphill climb to produce a champion. Okay, let's talk volleyball. State volleyball tournaments are next week, Ryan. We will once again be recording some state volleyball tournament previews with Lindsay Togiai Afuk, our kind of in-house volleyball expert. So that's where all your state volleyball content is going to come from next week. But let's talk about who's already punched their tickets, Ryan, by winning their district championships. We'll just start at the top, 6A, work our way down. Congratulations to the Coeur d'Alene Vikings. They win the Inland Empire League over Lake City. They beat them the first game 3-1, and then they beat them 2 nights ago 3-0 in a sweep to win the best of 3 series over the Timberwolves. Coeur d'Alene advancing to state, and I think, just looking big picture here, Madison, Owyhee, Skyview, Eagle, all going to be really good teams. Coeur d'Alene will be in the mix for a trophy. I don't know if it's going to be that first place trophy, just because there's so many good teams.
There's a lot of good teams in that bracket, and that tournament's, 6A volleyball is super competitive. And you look at the history of, there's some blue bloods that are going to be in that tournament. You look at, Skyview and Eagle. There's going to be some really, really heavy hitters in that tournament. Coeur d'Alene's got their work cut out for them, but doesn't take away. They've had a great season so far. They play well when they're at full strength and they're at full go. That's a really tough group. We've saw them beat some really good teams from Spokane. Do they have a puncher's chance? Absolutely. Are they the odds-on favorite to win the state championship? I don't know if anybody's picking them other than themselves, but that's gonna be a really tough tournament, but it'll be interesting to see how they respond over in the Mountain America Center, and they get to go take a nice road trip next week, and hopefully they come home with some hardware. That's a good group of girls that they play really hard. They're well coached, so. I mean, like I said, everybody's got a chance any given day, but they're going to have to put some pieces together and play the net really strong against some of those teams with a lot of height.
And Coeur d'Alene knew they were going to have to travel for state this year, and they kind of built that in. They traveled down to, the Cuna Classic to open the season down in Cuna. They did travel to Rexburg to play in that Battle of the Best tournament at the end of September as well. So they're used to the long road trips, that's for sure. 5A volleyball, it actually starts tonight, Ryan. We had kind of the play-in games or the loser-out games, the top 4 teams. Number 1, Lakeland swept number 4, Sandpoint 3-0. Number 2, Lewiston beats number 3, Moscow in 5, 3-2. Moscow pushed Lewiston to the brink, but the Bengals advanced. And so starting tonight in Rathdrum, Lewiston taking on Lakeland in the best of 3 district championship series. I still like Lakeland to advance, and I'm sticking with it. At the start of the season, I said Lakeland was my pick to win it all for 5A volleyball. I'm sticking to my guns.
They're at full strength. That's hard to pick against them right now. I mean, they're playing really, really well, and they've been hot down the stretch since they got, some of their best players back. That group is so, man. You talk about quietly. We talked about a fair amount on this show, but you look at statewide, I mean, a lot of the attention goes either south or east, and this group is, in my opinion, I think that they can absolutely have the firepower to win it all. I don't judge your pick one bit because I think you're right. I like Lakeland to win a state championship. They got to get through the Bengals, and the Bengals are going to have something to say about it. Like, Lewiston's a good team too, but this Lakeland team is tough. They've got height. They've got good speed. They've got good teamwork. They hit the ball extremely well. They got good hitting percentages. They just keep it in play. And when you keep it in play, you give yourself a chance. So that, you look at Lakeland, that's a group that for a state title, I absolutely do not disagree with you right there. I think that they distinctly have a really good chance at winning it all.
Yep. All right. 4A volleyball, just the 2 teams, of course, Bonners Ferry and Timberlake up there in the Intermountain League. I thought this was a best of 3 championship series, Ryan, but I guess Bonners Ferry swept Timberlake in the regular season. They got the number 1 seed in the home court advantage. They played the first game on Monday night. Bonners Ferry won it 3-2. So Timberlake kind of really pushed Bonners Ferry in that matchup. But basically the way this was set up was the impetus was on Timberlake to win that first game. If Bonners Ferry won the first match, it was over and they won the district. If Timberlake had won, that would have then enacted the best of 3 series. Very unusual. I've never seen that before. Different way of doing it.
Yeah, I think with getting the season sweep, you count roll. You get a bankroll your wins. So they were already technically up 2-0. So then if Timberlake had snuck one, I think it turns in what would look like a best of 5. But anyways, Bonners Ferry takes care of business, gets the win, and they're going to find themselves in the state tournament.
Yep. So congratulations to the Badgers. Just based on prior experience, they're probably going to be a low seed in what should be a pretty crowded field. Fruitland, Fruitland, Bear Lake is playing really well this year. Kimberly, obviously outstanding. But good luck to the Badgers. 3A volleyball, Central Idaho League. This was bananas, Ryan. The number 1 seed, Kellogg, loses in their tournament opener to number 4 Priest River 3-1. In fact, the undefeated semifinal was number 4 Priest River and number 3 Grangeville. The top 2 seeds, Kellogg and Orofino, both lost right away. Orofino barely held off Kellogg 3-2 in a loser-out game. So Kellogg hosted this tournament and went 2 in barbecue.
Yeah, I mean, you get bounced in the first round. You talk about this is almost demoralizing. You look at, I don't want to say things could happen, but that's why you play the district tournaments. You never know what happens coming out of it. Like, because you want to crown, Kellogg right out of the beginning, but I don't want to sound like Coach Dennis Green, but you don't crown anyone. You got to play the game. So, but I mean, Grangeville coming back and getting the win over Priest River, who was, riding a cloud 9 coming out of a win over Kellogg. That was huge for that program. But yeah, I mean, it's just You look at the parity within the conference and how things shake out. It's just wild. And, we'll talk about that when you look at, you got a championship game tonight with Wallace and Genesis Prep in 2A. So, we'll talk more about that stuff, but anybody can win any night. That's why you have to play it. You have to just line up and go. And, congrats to Priest River, though, getting that win in that first round. I don't know if that was what kind of broke a team, but you almost let a team beat you twice.
Yep. And so from there, Grangeville wins the district title over Priest River 3-1. Orofino takes care of Priest River 3-0 in the second and third place match. So Grangeville district champs moving on to state. Orofino now advances to a play-in match on Saturday, I believe in Grangeville, ironically, of all places. So Orofino's got to go to Grangeville. They're going to play Nampa Christian in a state tournament play-in match. That'll be a tough one. Kind of a coin flip game, I feel like, but
it's a tough matchup. I mean, Nampa Christian historically has been a really strong program, and this year they're obviously not the number one team in their conference, but that's a tough game for Orofino. But Orofino proved it by going the hard way and getting the win over Kellogg. So I mean, if you can do that and ride that high a little bit, you can find yourself in the tournament, sneak your way in, steal a bid. Yep.
Overall 3A tournament is going to be in Moscow, so it'd be nice if Orofino got there. I mean, that's very close to where they're at. Melba, overwhelming favorite until somebody knocks them off. They are still the team to beat. Beyond that, who knows? Anybody can finish second. Yeah. So
absolutely.
All right, let's talk 2A. Let's go White Pine League first. Troy, no surprises. Yeah. They beat Potlatch last night in the district championship 3-0. They're moving on. Winner take all game tonight. Potlatch and Prairie, the 2 versus the 4. The winner of that game tonight at Lewis and Clark State College in Lewiston will also advance to state. For the loser, they get nothing. The big development was Kamei, who took third and was the number 3 seed, I thought would have a chance to compete here. They got knocked out by Lapway 2 nights ago. The 5 seed. Lapway swept Kamei 3-0. So big win for Lapway. Lapway then fell to Prairie last night, but man, that was a good win for the Lapway girls.
No, that was a huge win for them. And then you just look at the competitive balance behind Troy. We know how good Troy is. We talk about them all the time. Everybody knows they've won 4. They're looking for their 4th in a row. And I think that it's 6 out of the last 8 or something like that. It's a crazy statistic that they've won, but you can go way back to the 2010s. I mean, they've been winning titles forever. That's just what they do. But you look at Prairie. I mean, Prairie coming in and getting a big win and find their way into a do or die situation with Potlatch. Can Potlatch respond? They proved themselves to be the number 2 team in the conference, the rest of the regular season. So can they take care of business against a scrappy Prairie team? I think that's going to be a great match. And I look at Potlatch. If they find their way into the tournament, if they get a win tonight, that's a team that obviously they're not going to play for a state championship in my mind. I think that's Troy's to have, but can they do some damage at state? I mean, that's a group that can play very well. And so, the Loggers got to take care of business and find their way in if they're going to, want to kind of carry the second torch, I guess, coming out of the White Pine League.
Yeah, statewide, kind of 2 big contenders to me, Troy and Butte County over in the east, but we shall see. District 1, Scenic Idaho Conference, Ryan. I had the front row seat for this. I was the PA announcer for these games at North Idaho College on Tuesday night, and I'm going back tonight as well, actually. So I'll probably just drop off the cell phone, the hotspot that you need either before or after that tonight as I'm driving. So that's a little behind the scenes thing. Okay. So Wallace sweeps Lakeside 3-0, and thank goodness they did, because otherwise we probably would have been there until 11 o'clock at night. This district match didn't get started until 8 o'clock because the game that preceded it, Mullen and Kootenai, with the full 5 sets. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Wallace sweeps Lakeside 3-2 after Lakeside had gotten the better of Wallace in the regular season. I thought it was a very impressive win for Wallace. They will now play Genesis Prep tonight for the district championship. The winner, if it's Genesis Prep, will move on to state. If Wallace wins, it sets up a true winner-take-all battle, and That would be at Genesis Prep on Saturday. So Wallace needs to win to force the true winner-take-all game Saturday. G Prep with a win tonight, wins the district, moves on to state. This Wallace Lakeside match, it was like all those familiar faces that I saw from basketball season. It was Kylie and Bethany Phillips for Wallace, and Amy Has, and Kepri Wood, and Aubrey Birdsell. And then on the Lakeside side, Tyla Lambert, and they've got an impressive freshman, Layla Charlie. We all know about the Charlie name over there in Lakeside.
She recognized that last name, yeah.
Yeah, she was the libero for Lakeside. She came in and did a really nice job too. So it was just a fun match all the way around. G Prep is the overwhelming favorite going into this district championship game tonight. I'm excited to see G Prep with my own eyes.
Yeah, and that's such a cool deal. If they take care of us, get to state, that team's going to go nuts. But they've got, the target on their back right now. So they're kind of looking, Wallace is, coming in, they've been there before. And so, it's like, can the scrappy new kid on the block upstart that's, having their great season, which Genesis Prep is, can they close things out? And they've beaten Wallace earlier in the year. They've taken care of business in league play, but when you get to districts, it's a different animal that you've got to be on your A game, and your consistency has to excel and improve. I like Genesis Prep a lot. I think that team, I don't want to say it's a team of destiny, but it'd be huge for that school and that program to get themselves into the state tournament. And I'd like to see that happen. As much as I like the kids from Wallace, don't get me wrong, I'm not poo-pooing on their party. They're well coached, but it would be a neat deal for Genesis Prep to get the win tonight. But how exciting would that game be on Saturday too, if they get to a true do or die play like that? The gyms at Real Life, the courts there, that place will be absolutely rocking if they get to there on Saturday.
Yeah, and that would be a true home game for G Prep. It would not be at North Idaho College. So that would be, that'd be kind of fun. Definitely. Okay, let's wrap up with the 1A White Pine League. Genesee and St. John Bosco playing for the district championship tonight. Genesee kind of favored there. They're the number 1 seed overall. St. John Bosco, the number 3 seed. You might be asking, hey, what happened to Deary, the 2 seed? Well, they lost to St. John Bosco 3-0 in their first district tournament match. And then Nez Perce clipped them in the loser out game 3-2. So Deary, the 2 seed, goes 2-out. Kind of creates this opening for St. John Bosco to, at a minimum, whoever wins tonight is the district champion, moves to state. Whoever takes second place still has a chance to qualify for state via a state play-in game. And so whoever takes second from the White Pine League will actually play the district champion from the North Star League in District 1, Ryan. And tonight, that district championship at North Idaho College between Coeur de Christ, the number 1 seed, and Kootenai, who defeated Mullen 3-2 in the district semifinal on Tuesday night. That was a fun back and forth affair. Mullen competed exceptionally well after kind of a tough and trying regular season. They had a couple of 8th graders in the starting lineup Tuesday night, Mullen did. And for Kootenai, I'm telling you, they've got a freshman in the middle. Charles is her last name, and she's going to be a player to watch. She's got the height. She's already got impressive skill as a freshman. I was very impressed with her. And so I'll be keeping an eye on her and Kootenai tonight. I'll be honest, I don't really know much about Coeur de Christ. I know they won the league this year, but I'll be excited to see them in action as well.
Yeah, and you talk about cool storylines too. Coeur de Christ in their first year of being able to play IHSAA sports and coming in, and if they can punch their ticket and get that win and then, find their way in the state tournament, that'd be huge for those kids. That's a cool group. We've been able to kind of talk to the program, at least on the football end, but I know, it's a small, pretty tight school. If you drive through downtown, down 7th Street in Coeur d'Alene, you can kind of see them there off the right there as you approach downtown. They're kind of meeting in an old church building, but not a ton of students, but would be an awesome deal for any state appearance, especially in your first year in existence. It would be super cool for that group.
Yep. And so that play-in match, second place from the White Pine, champion from the North Star, Saturday, 1:00 at Coeur d'Alene High School. Winner of that will advance to state. All right, let's wrap up with some quick football talk. The story last week was Logos 30, Kendrick 18. Kendrick led this game 12-6 at halftime, Ryan. Logos finally goes ahead in the third quarter, 14-12. Very next play, ensuing kickoff, Sawyer Hewitt takes it back for a touchdown. Kendrick leads again, 18-14. Not only was that the last time Kendrick would score, but Logos would outscore Kendrick over the final stretch of the second half, 14-0, to put up a 2-score win. Kendrick's 30-game win streak is snapped, and Logos is your White Pine League champion. They get a first-round bye for the 2A postseason that starts next week.
Logos plays Potlatch tomorrow night. Potlatch would love to spoil the party because Potlatch needs the lift in the rankings in order to find their way into the tournament. They basically, it's win and you're in. If you lose, kind of go home, I think is the way Max Preps is going to shake out for the Loggers. But that's a huge deal for that group. And the coaches were texting me and messaging me on Twitter and stuff after the game, and they were just absolutely tickled. It was such a neat moment for them. And I don't ever say a loss is a good thing for a team, but to lose, if you're going to lose and you're Kendrick, losing to Logos in this game isn't necessarily the end of the world. People could think that the sky is falling, that the 3,000-pound gorilla in the room has been thrown out of the zoo, whatever. Kendrick ain't going anywhere. Like Kendrick's, they're going to be okay. Coach would probably echo this, and I talked to Coach Frisbee, one of the offensive coaches for the Tigers, and assistant, but he just said, we got a little case of the yips. You started playing tight towards the end of the game, and it was like you're playing, instead of playing to win, start playing not to lose, and you end up getting clipped there. And that stuff happens. I mean, it's high school sports, and it's a big game and a huge moment, and it's not going to take away from what Logos did. They outscored their opponent. At the end of the game, they put the foot on the gas and didn't let off. They spread the wealth with touchdowns. I think they had 4 different players with touchdowns in that game. This is a huge showing for the Knights. You look at the team going into the playoffs of anybody, them and Hagerman are on an absolute, I don't want to say collision course, but this state tournament at 2A is going to be absolutely fantastic. Oh my gosh, is it going to be good?
The top 5 teams all have 1 loss each. You're talking about Logos, Kendrick, Butte County, Valley, and Hagerman. And they've almost completed this wheel of completion where they've all beaten each other, right? Valley beat Hagerman. Hagerman beat Butte County. Butte County beat Logos. Logos beat Kendrick. I mean, it's just going to be, I can't wait.
Some of these first round matchups, you're going to be like, this should be a semifinal game. The chef's kiss, right? It's going to be great. And, we're lucky because we're going to get some great games up north too. That they'll be happening up here that we'll be able to broadcast. But I'm just looking forward to this. I think of all the brackets now, as things have kind of settled a little bit, 3A is going to be super competitive too. But you talk about win, lose, or draw on any given night with talent that's in any bracket. This 2A is absolutely loaded.
Just looking from 1,000 feet, it appears to me on the surface the 2 most competitive brackets that are going to feature the most, quality number of teams that are going to really push each other to the limits. 2A, 6A. Those are the 2 that I'm looking at. And I'm like,
I can see that.
Man, each of those have like 5 teams that have studs and lined up, and I'll go, yep, they could probably win it all. So really good competition. Okay, before we talk about the 2 games we're going to be broadcasting this Friday night, Ryan, this just in, Sam Buffington, girls and boys soccer finals, Owyhee 2, Lake City 1 in each of those contests. And Sam adds, yes, I was cold out there. Sam, thank you for being out there and covering that for us while we're inside. Yeah. Appreciate it, Sam. So that's kind of a bummer.
Works so dang hard in the back. I don't think people realize how hard Sam works to get scores. I mean, he's threaded in everywhere statewide trying to get stuff, and that's pretty cool to see him. Just an independent guy doing his thing, and he does a lot on social media, on Instagram, and he does a great job. And we're lucky to be friends with him. But Sam's a great dude, and I just hope he keeps it up because I think he does great work for the kids.
Yes. There's more and more media members that are getting into just social media, right? Instagram and Twitter and things like that. And there are a lot of guys out there statewide that are going about it the wrong way.
Yep.
And there's a lot of guys that are doing it the right way. Sam is doing it the right way. There's no doubt about it. So
absolutely.
Keep up the good work, Sam, and thanks for posting those final scores for us. Kind of a bummer. Lake City falls, both boys and girls, to Owyhee each by 2-1 scores at state soccer. Okay, Friday night, double dip of North Idaho. It's been a while since you and I got out of the barn here and went somewhere
get my chops back. Yeah.
Yeah. So we decided to double up on North Idaho game night here in the final week of the regular season. Ryan, you will be headed to Lewiston to broadcast essentially the Inland Empire League Championship. It's Lakeland, it's Lewiston. The winner wins the IEL and gets probably a top 5 seed into the 5A postseason. The loser, because of the way they did the stupid bracket predetermined, is going to automatically be probably the number 9 seed and going to have to travel to Preston for the opening round of the playoffs. So that's what's on the line. A long trip to the far southeast corner of the state in Preston for the loser.
And a winnable game, though. I will say that.
Well, yes. Definitely a winnable game, but man, that's a long trip.
That's a long trip. But you look at this game and the storylines. I mean, Bengals coming down from 6A to 5A, beating Coeur d'Alene early in the season. They've had a tough schedule. They played one of the top teams in the state of Washington. They drew, Kennewick came and played. They got, the brakes beat off of them by Kennewick, but that's a really, really good group. The Bengals are a good team. They're quietly, I think they're more balanced than they've been in years past. We've seen them really top heavy, either at quarterback play or at running back. But this Lewiston team is a team. I mean, it's team first with that group. And you look at the front seven, they've got some road graders up front. That offensive line, that defensive line, they move people. And I look at this game of all the matchups within the game. It's going to be the offensive line from Lakeland, that defensive front from Lewiston, and then you flip those sides of the ball. The immovable object versus the unstoppable force type of situation, that those two units, it's a clash of the Titans up front. It'll be fun. I mean, realistically, I think that the final score could be like 19-16, something like that. These defenses are pretty stingy. Is Lovey Wild going to be able to get loose? Is he going to be able to get his big runs? We've seen him in every game. He's had a run over 50 yards, I think, in almost every game this year. Is he going to get his? And then can Lewiston on the defensive end get some takeaways? We've seen them on the defensive back and get a couple key interceptions in some really good close games they've had this year. So, the X factor, in my opinion, is probably going to be like Lewiston's front seven. I look at Lakeland, and it's going to be Jace Taylor. Can Jace Taylor get involved in the offensive side of the ball? He's a difference maker when he gets the ball in his hands. We've seen him keep, in that Weezer game that we had in that post-Falls game, he had some clutch receptions, some clutch catches that kept that offense moving. It gives another target to focus on other than Lovey Wild. So, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a really fun game. Second game ever at the new Bengal field there at the new high school. Gorgeous facility. They still don't have the press box finished yet, but we came up with some solutions, so we're going to make it happen, man. We're going to be in the stands. I've got former Genesee coach Tim Sperber going to do the game with me. I'm super excited. He's a great guy, and that's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah. You'll have to ask Tim when you see him if we can use him for the playoffs too. So
yeah, we'll do that. I'm going to have to bribe him. I'm going to get some Fazzaris before the game and probably try to sweeten the pot a little bit. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, the game I'm at will also feature a former coach in the booth with me, Stetson Spooner, former Mullen St. Regis head coach. Me and Spooner are going to be on the call for all the way at the other end, the 1A North Star League championship game, the Lakeside Knights and the Wallace Miners. Now, this North Star League is a double round robin. Everybody plays everybody twice in league play. You'll remember Lakeside beat Wallace already once this year. They won by multiple scores, but the final score was kind of deceiving. It was a very close game until the fourth quarter. Lakeside scored with no time left on the clock to kind of pad the win, as it were. Yeah. So it was a very, very close game. And here comes the rematch. Both teams have one loss in conference play because Lakeside stubbed their toe 2 weeks ago in a 60-58 overtime loss to Coeur d'Alene. So this is a true winner-take-all championship battle. Each side has had guys in and out of the lineup all season long. I've noticed some key players for Lakeside in street clothes on the sidelines at some of their games. Wallace suffered a big hit last week. Alex Grubbs, their fantastic running back, had to leave with an injury. This is really going to come down to, I know it sounds cliche, but this really is going to come down to the two quarterbacks, Tyson Charlie for Lakeside, Cooper Miller for Wallace. Cooper Miller has gone over 1,000 yards rushing and passing this year. And now with Grubbs out of the lineup, they're really going to lean on Miller to run the ball a lot. And we know when Lakeside really needs a yard, yes, they can go to Jerry Asai, John Moffitt, but also Charlie's a big guy at 6'2", and he can plow ahead too.
Yeah, he's a threat. And I mean, you talk about two insanely tasty matchups that we've got in the games this week. And your game's going to be, it's got some fun storylines. I mean, you talk about the freshman phenom quarterback Cooper Miller for Wallace, and then you look at what Tyson Charlie's been able to do with Lakeside. And I mean, it pains me to say this, the loser's probably not going to get in the playoffs. And that's, I mean, how can a 7-2 team not make it in, the type of situation, and or 6-2, whatever the final record ends up being. And it's just, you kind of get snake bitten a little bit by playing your double round robin, because you have to play the other teams within your conference, and Lakeside ended up losing to one of them. And I say, if there's Achilles heels on either side, Wallace losing their starting running back, changes things to where, are you going to be able to pack the box against Miller? But the X factor is, you look on the outside, they've got a 6'4" wide receiver on the outside that can stretch the field and take over the game. So if you're not careful, Wallace can torch you on the defensive side of the ball with the long ball. I mean, if you're Lakeside, they give up runs, but I think that plays to their hand. If Wallace is short their starting running back, okay, so maybe you don't have that running back. That's the other factor you got to worry about in the backfield. You can play. We know they cover really well. They got a great secondary, does Lakeside. So now it's going to be, okay, mano a mano. How's quarterback on quarterback? Who's going to win this game? There's some definitive, interesting storylines that you're going to have in your game.
Yeah, I can't wait. Your game is going to be like you said, 1916. My game might be like 70 to 65.
You'll run out of digits on the scoreboard. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Hey, here's our good friend Josh McDonald over in Shoshone County, Kellogg area. Spooner is the GOAT. No doubt about it. And a quick question from Josh too, and then we'll get out of here. He said, maybe you guys can help me here. I was under the impression that Max Preps didn't track games between teams from different states, or at least that's what we were told for basketball. My question is specific to Priest River, who is currently ranked number 12 in 3A, but they have several Washington opponents. I know Max Preps is goofy and usually clear as mud, but perhaps you guys have some insight. They absolutely count. Those out-of-state opponents absolutely count towards your Max Preps ranking. That was one of the big draws for when the IHSAA decided to go with Max Preps instead of an in-house RPI, is that Max Preps already has a built-in rating formula, and it doesn't matter where the opponent is from that you're playing, it's able to calculate that algorithm. And so for Priest River, they play Kellogg Friday night. The winner, if Kellogg wins that game, I don't know that it's enough to move Kellogg into the playoff picture. I just don't know how the Max Preps numbers work clearly enough to know that. I know they are significantly behind that last playoff spot right now. If Priest River wins, they're in the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years. So it's really an exciting time. And so, yes, to answer your question, Josh, those games against Washington opponents absolutely do count. I think the one thing we've all learned from Max Preps is you want to try and schedule teams that are going to bankroll a lot of wins. It doesn't matter if they're a 6A opponent. It doesn't matter if they're a 1A opponent. It doesn't matter if they're from another state. You want to schedule teams that are then going to go out and bankroll a bunch of wins, because that's how the computer views it.
Yeah, and Washington uses their own RPI system, so to seed their stuff. So their numbers are going to look a little different than Max Preps, because they've got more calculations in their system. But you look at teams that like Priest River's played, like Newport and some of the other schools. I think played Medical Lake. They're not winning very much. Newport's been hard for wins the last few years, but they're kind of one of those teams that, if they hit 500, they're lucky some years. But it doesn't take away from what Priest River has been able to do. I mean, that Spartan group, like, they're scrappy. I mean, if I'm in the playoffs and I'm playing them first round, like, that's a team that, like, they're playing with house money. And it's a team you don't want to face. But Kellogg, you look at it and you don't know if they win, if they're even in. Where Priest River, they're pretty much assured being in that 12 spot. If they win, they're going to at least jump. And you look at the other games around them, like above them, they could jump into that top 10 slide into that top 10 spot pretty easily with a win on Friday night. So, but yes, to answer that question though, the wins from the other state do count. I don't know if they take into account necessarily how deep it goes into the metric when it goes into points and everything else, but it does count with their overall record, and it looks a little different because I think that's where Moscow's getting snake bit so hard with their max preps rankings because they did play some Washington schools as well. They beat a Clarkston team that's ranked number 6 in the RPI in Washington, but their max preps rankings, I don't even know if they're in the top 20. So that, it doesn't do Moscow any good when on paper it looks like they played a good team, but according to Max Preps, they didn't beat a very good team.
Right. So to illustrate the point for basketball, for example, Kellogg, on paper, you might go, hey, let's go play Sandpoint. They're a 5A school. We're punching up a couple levels. It's going to be good competition. Well, if Sandpoint is really bad, let's say Sandpoint goes 2-18 in basketball, that's actually going to hurt you. Even though you played up and played a significantly larger school, the computer doesn't know that. If I'm Kellogg, you're better served to go play Lapway, a team that's going to bankroll a bunch of wins, even though that's a level below you, or even like for example, let's say Deary, 2 levels below you, and they have a really good team. You want to go play teams that are going to bankroll a bunch of wins. It doesn't matter what size, doesn't matter what classification. You just want teams that are going to win.
And they changed that algorithm too because it doesn't have the true strength of schedule built in. It looks at strength of win. So it looks at the wins from your opponent too. And that's where it comes in instead of what's your opponent's schedule. They could be 2-18, but they could have played, 20 of the top 10 teams, nationwide, and it would still look pretty crummy because you didn't pick up any of those wins. So that, it's not the perfect system, but it's the system that we have right now. Is it the one that I want? No. But it's what we have. And so, you have to kind of like just what you can prognosticate on is that things will change on Sunday afternoon. Like realistically, we know it's not going to turn out. We saw, what was it? Sandpoint 2 years ago, jump from the 6th seed to number 2 just on a Sunday afternoon in that final rankings. So, anything can happen.
and what changed it was a real butterfly effect. It was something a Utah school did.
Yep.
Because Minico played Utah in the Rocky Mountain Rumble, and that affected, it was just a whole domino effect. So, and as we learned last year, that hard deadline is set. I think it's midnight Saturday
or 9 a.m. Sunday or something like that. Yeah.
If all the scores aren't in, too bad, so sad. They're going to roll with what they got, and they don't care if all the results are in or not. So we raised a big ruckus about that last year, and everyone just said, nah.
That's what we have. That's the answer we got. This is what we have.
Again, with Max Preps, we're in a better spot than we used to be, where it was all predetermined, but we can still get better too. So that's where I'm at. All right. Well, we went almost an hour, Ryan. We managed to go way long.
It's our welcome back show after like a week-long hiatus. So for me, but not for you, not me, but
right. Okay. Last
week between Gem State game day and the Prepcast. So
you were a busy guy. You're a popular guy this time of year because a lot of impactful things happening up here in North Idaho, and we will be back again to break it all down for you next week. For Ryan Scaggs, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, to the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.